My best friend found a bronze mirror that could connect to the ancient past. She fell in love with an ancient man who claimed to be a general. She took out a loan to buy enough rice and winter clothing for 10,000 men. The general then sent her a marriage proposal through the mirror, inviting her to wed him in ancient times. I pleaded with her desperately, but she paid no heed. After leaving me a letter, she vanished into the ancient past. Half a year later, my best friend appeared in a bronze mirror, on the brink of death, calling out to me for help. I gathered my things and, without a second thought, leaped in to save her, but the moment I landed, I was shoved into a scalding hot steamer. My best friend leaned weakly into the man's arms, wiping her tears as she said to me, Shin, I'm sorry, but the only way we can get back to the modern era is by using your bones to pave a path. You won't hold it against me, right, inside the steamer basket. I wailed in agony, begging her to let me out. She buried her face in the man's chest, looking utterly distressed. Later, I was steamed alive. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day my best friend came to me for advice, holding her marriage certificate with a face full of shy delight. Shin. He proposed to me. A pair of hands grabbed my shoulders tightly, shaking my body frantically. The sharp, stabbing pain in my shoulders made my mind go blank for a second, that is, until I saw Zhou Yutong's face. Unable to contain her excitement, every inch of my skin erupted in a searing, fiery pain. I was reborn, only to be stuffed into a steamer basket and boiled over a roaring fire for a full day and night. I watched, helpless, as my own skin and flesh sloughed off piece by piece. The agony was unbearable, the suffocating sense of inescapable torment leaving my entire body trembling. The phantom sensation of skin peeling away from bones still lingers on my flesh. I couldn't stop myself from clawing violently at my exposed skin. Shin, are you insane? You've crumpled my marriage certificate. Zhou Yutong slapped the back of my hand, leaving an instant red mark on my skin. Did you do that to my marriage certificate on purpose? Zhou Yutong frowned, looking me up and down with a suspicious gaze. You're not jealous of me, are you? As she spoke, Zhou Yutong clutched the so-called marriage contract to her chest, eyeing me with a guarded look. And in that instant, the fog in my mind finally cleared. I shoved her aside where she stood blocking my way and asked coldly, what exactly am I supposed to be jealous of? Jealous that you failed 3 more subjects this semester, or jealous that you racked up over 300 grand in nude loan debt for some so-called general, and now you're getting hounded by a dozen calls a day to pay it back? You? Zhou Yutong's face flushed crimson as she stared at me in disbelief. Shin. What's gotten into you? Why are you being so vicious? I'm your best friend. I gave a mocking smile. So, in Zhou Yutong's eyes, telling the truth counted as being harsh. I didn't want to share the same space with Zhou Yutong any longer. I turned to leave, but she grabbed my arm. You're just going to leave, after saying such awful things. You're not even going to apologize. Zhou Yutong's eyes were red, looking as if I had wronged her terribly. Are you even my best friend anymore? If it were the me from my past life, I probably would have done everything in my power to comfort her and cater to her feelings right away. I would have ordered her milk tea and bought her gifts, just to cheer her up and beg for her forgiveness. But that was the Li Xian from my past life, the one who always spoiled her, gave in to her, and put her first in everything. She lured me back to ancient times, locked me in a steamer with her own hands, and steamed me alive. Just the sight of her insincere, affected face makes me sick to my stomach now. I had to clench my fists so tightly, I almost broke my own fingers, just to stop myself from hitting her. For a long moment, I forced down the seething rage within me and changed the subject. That's exactly because I'm your best friend. I ground out the words, best friend, with extra emphasis. That's why I was so furious when you came to me with the marriage certificate today. Last time he sent you a wooden hairpin through that bronze mirror. You took out a nude loan for 300,000 just for him. You bought a whole pile of rice, oil, flour, all sorts of medicine, and winter clothes. He sent you a marriage proposal, but what's the point? My gaze settled on Zhou Yutong's face, and as she hesitated slightly, I whispered in her ear, he's in some unknown ancient era, and you're in the modern world. There's simply no way for the two of you, unless, I trailed off, leaving the thought unfinished. Zhou Yutong grabbed my hand urgently and asked, unless what? Unless you could exist in the same time and space. But that's impossible, isn't it? I subtly withdrew my hand from Zhou Yutong's grasp and saw her eyes suddenly light up, too. In her past life, Zhou Yutong found a bronze mirror. She thought it was a priceless antique and treasured it immensely. However, after multiple appraisals, it was confirmed to be a modern reproduction, worth next to nothing. Furious, Zhou Yutong threw the mirror straight into the trash. At that very moment, a deep male voice emanated from the mirror. 3 months without water or provisions, not a single grain of rice left in the city. Are my Jinzhou soldiers truly destined to fall here? No, never. I offer my own life. I beg the gods to show their power and save my Jinzhou men. Zhou Yutong was terrified. She immediately called me, Xin. There's a ghost in my mirror. I was studying in the library at the time. Hearing her cry for help, I didn't dare delay and rushed back to the dormitory. Zhou Yutong was hiding under the covers, trembling with fear. While trying to calm her down, I went to search the trash can for that bronze mirror. There are no ghosts. Don't scare yourself like that. Even if there were, it's fine. I'll stand in front of you, so don't be afraid. I murmured words of comfort, only to freeze the next second when a strikingly handsome man's face appeared in the mirror. It was an exquisitely refined face, so beautiful it seemed unreal. Perhaps because of the bronze mirror, his entire visage seemed to carry a hazy, fragmented quality. Are you a goddess? Rongli asked, his lips dry, his gaze disbelieving as he stared at my reflection. Before I could even respond, Zhou Yutong's eyes lit up beside me, and she snatched the bronze mirror right out of my hands. Who are you? You're not a ghost, are you? Zhou Yutong stared at Rongli's breathtakingly beautiful face, swallowing hard without thinking. But before Rongli could answer, the handsome man in the bronze mirror vanished, leaving only the sound of his raspy voice. If you truly are the goddess, please help me. Rongli said they were at war, and his troops had been cut off from water and food for nearly 3 months. Without reinforcements soon, they would all die here. He pleaded with us to get him some food. Zhou Yutong immediately placed her own snacks and an orange on the bronze mirror. A flash of white light swept over the bronze mirror, and the pile of snacks placed on it vanished without a trace. Both Zhou Yutong and I stared wide-eyed in disbelief. You truly are a goddess. Rongli's voice was thick with reverence. Zhou Yutong, utterly charmed by him calling her goddess over and over, beamed with delight. Clutching the bronze mirror, she started chatting with him. Then, at Rongli's hushed and pleading request, Zhou Yutong went straight to the canteen, packed over 50 portions of plain rice, and sent them all through. As I watched portions of rice vanish before my eyes, an inexplicable sense of foreboding crept over me. I quietly pulled Zhou Yutong aside and whispered, Tong, I've got a bad feeling about this thing. The idea that this mirror connects to ancient times is simply mind-boggling. It's far beyond our ability to control. What if we turned this mirror over to the state for research? I ventured cautiously. Zhou Yutong pouted and clutched the bronze mirror even tighter. This is mine, and I'm not giving it to anyone. Besides, I know what I'm doing, Zhou Yutong added, giving me a wary look. Don't make a fuss. Perhaps worried I might spill the secret. Zhou Yutong softened her expression and took my hand. Xin, you're my best friend. You absolutely must not tell anyone about this mirror, or else, may you get hit by a car. I was utterly exasperated. Only after I repeatedly promised, under her wheedling pleas, that I wouldn't breathe a word of it did she finally relax. Zhou Yutong insisted she knew her limits, but I couldn't help worrying she might be taken advantage of. After keeping a close eye on her for a while and confirming that the bronze mirror wasn't having any ill effects, I felt a bit more at ease. What I never expected was for Zhou Yutong to develop genuine feelings for Rongli through their daily conversations. On her birthday, Rongli even gave her a wooden hairpin he had carved himself, along with the words, Tong, I might not make it back this time, but I still wanted to wish you a happy birthday. Zhou Yutong was so moved that she broke down in tears late at night, crying until her eyes were red and swollen, all to save Rongli and the million soldiers he spoke of. She took out a nude loan, borrowed over 300,000, and bought a large quantity of rice, along with medicine and winter clothing, sending it all to Rongli's side through the bronze mirror. By the time I found out, it was already too late. Zhou Yutong had already sent everything over to Rongli's place. I was so angry I stamped my foot. Are you out of your mind? You owe so much money, and the interest keeps piling up every single day. What are you going to do? but Zhou Yutong, her eyes red, asked me, then what do you suggest? I can't just stand by and watch him die. I am his divine protector. Who else could save him but me? 3. We had a huge fight over that nude loan scandal involving Zhou Yutong, but later, when I saw she had no money for food and was starving, trying to fill her stomach with just water, I couldn't help myself and brought her an extra meal. Later, after Rongli achieved a decisive victory, he sent her a marriage proposal through the bronze mirror, inviting her to come to the ancient past to wed him. I tried my hardest to dissuade her. Don't go, there's no electricity, no running water, not even sanitary pads in ancient times. You're used to living with air conditioning. How would you survive over there? I know all that. Zhou Yutong replied with a dismissive click of her tongue, yet her gaze remained fixed on the marriage document, unblinking. Her fingertips traced each character with care, and her eyes and the corners of her mouth were alight with joy. I thought she had taken my advice to heart, but 3 days later, she left me a letter and simply vanished into the past. At that moment, I hated myself for not stopping her, for not making her stay. After that, the bronze mirror never connected to that ancient world again. I still hadn't heard any news from Zhou Yutong, yet every day, I persisted in speaking to the bronze mirror, praying she could hear me. Half a year later, an image of Zhou Yutong, on the brink of death, finally appeared in the mirror. Her face was deathly pale. Through her tears, she cried out to me just one word, Xin. I grabbed my things and jumped in without a second thought to save her. Little did I know, the moment I landed, I was shoved into a scalding hot steamer basket. A wave of heat engulfed me. I was standing on a searing hot steamer, and outside was my best friend. I cried out in the direction of Zhou Yutong. Yutong, help me, Xin, I'm so sorry. The only way for us to get back to the modern era is to kill someone from the future and use your bones to pave the way. Zhou Yutong then leaned weakly into Rong Li's arms, wiping her tears as she said to me, I just can't stand living here anymore. And I miss my parents so much. I really want to go back with their future son-in-law. You're my best friend. You'll help me, won't you? I wailed in agony from within the steamer, begging her over and over to let me out, yet she buried her face in the man's chest, feigning a look of pity. Later, I was steamed inside that basket for a full day and night, cooked alive until my flesh fell from the bone, and Zhou Yutong and Rong Li stepped over my remains to arrive in the modern era. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the very day Zhou Yutong received Rong Li's marriage proposal. At this moment, there were only 3 days left before Zhou Yutong would travel back to ancient times. In my past life, I learned from Zhou Yutong's letters, the medium that allowed her to travel to the past was blood. Unwilling to use her own blood, Zhou Yutong secretly captured a stray cat from the campus to drain its blood. The cat didn't have enough blood, so she spent 3 grueling days draining it to collect the amount she needed. In this life, since I've returned, I will save myself, and I will save the innocent kittens too. I let out a deep sigh and said to Zhou Yutong, give up on that idea. This bronze mirror seems to only transmit inanimate objects, not living things. Just give up, I said with feigned regret. Your fate together ends here. I refuse, Zhou Yutong replied through gritted teeth. There must be a way. If heaven brought Rong Li and me together, then there must be a way for us to stay together forever. Xin, please help me, Zhou Yutong pleaded. You're the clever one. If you help me, we can definitely make it work. I pinched my fingers, and after a long pause, I smiled and replied, all right, for it was easy to let Zhou Yutong discover that blood could be used as a medium. I just asked offhandedly, by the way, don't they say in the novels that artifacts like bronze mirrors can be bound to a master? Have you done it? No, Zhou Yutong said hesitantly, the blood-dropping kind. I think that would really hurt. Want me to try it for you? I said, moving to bite my finger, but Zhou Yutong quickly stopped me. No, it's fine, Zhou Yutong said, hastily grabbing my hand and forcing an awkward smile. There was no way she'd let me touch her precious thing. Afraid it would become unusable if I did, Zhou Yutong took a deep breath, closed her eyes for a moment, then bit her finger hard and smeared the blood onto the mirror. The next second, Zhou Yutong let out a gasp as she stared at her own translucent finger. Xin, you're a genius, Zhou Yutong exclaimed excitedly, hugging me and jumping up and down. She packed her things overnight, ready to cross over, my phone, power bank, makeup, and skincare products. When I show up in front of him wearing modern clothes with light makeup, he's going to be absolutely blown away. Zhou Yutong's face was full of anticipation as she carefully checked her items one by one, occasionally asking me, Xin, quick, help me see if I've forgotten anything. I raised an eyebrow slightly as I watched her pack 3 large suitcases. One was stuffed with clothes and high heels, another was packed with daily necessities. The last one was filled with books, titles like the Agricultural Bible, the Encyclopedia of Manufacturing, and all sorts of reference manuals. She certainly came prepared. It looks like she's planning to take modern technology back in time and make a real splash. I don't believe Zhou Yutong's mind is capable of coming up with all this, for no reason at all. Rong Li's sickly face surfaced in my mind. I recalled the first time I met him. Rong Li's mouth was piously uttering, "Goddess." But in my eyes, there wasn't a trace of reverence in his gaze. Instead, it looked like he was eyeing prey, a faint glint shimmering within. Zhou Yutong spent the entire night packing, and the blood draws were spread out over 2 separate days. Just as she had everything ready and was about to travel back to ancient times, Rong Li suddenly sent a message to Zhou Yutong through the bronze mirror. When his face appeared in the bronze mirror, Zhou Yutong instinctively blocked my view. She shot me a glance, then hurried to the bathroom with the mirror in her arms and locked the door behind her. I stood by the thin, non-soundproof door and heard them speaking in hushed tones. "Do you have everything ready?" Rong Li asked in a low voice. "I've got it all," Zhou Yutong whispered back. "The books, the various seeds. I've prepared everything. I'll be there to see you soon. Are you looking forward to it?" Zhou Yutong's voice could not conceal her shyness. From the other end, Rong Li's voice showed not the slightest hesitation. "I'd been looking forward to this moment since the very first time we met." Tong. They poured their hearts out to each other for quite a while, and it gave me goosebumps just listening. Just as I was about to leave, I heard Rong Li say to Zhou Yutong with meaningful emphasis, "By the way, find a way to bring your friend, the one named Li Lu, along as well. She might prove useful in the future." My breath hitched, and I found myself clenching my fists involuntarily. Rong Li shouldn't know my surname is Li at this point. 5. I was tidying up the skincare products on my desk when Zhou Yutong emerged from the bathroom with a face like thunder. I saw her come out and naturally waved the item in my hand, smiling at her. "This SK2 is practically brand new. Didn't you say you wanted it before? I'll give it to you. Let me put it in your backpack." "Oh, by the way," I asked, trying to sound casual, "has Rong Li ever mentioned me to you?" I said this with a hint of shyness, self-consciously fiddling with my hair. "Why do you ask?" Zhou Yutong's expression was a little hard to read. The moment she asked that, I knew she had taken the bait, because Zhou Yutong was intensely possessive. In her own words, she had a kind of emotional fastidiousness. Back when we were best friends, she wouldn't let me get too close to anyone else. Whenever I went out shopping with someone else, or even just chatted with them for a few extra minutes, Zhou Yutong would get furious, crying and demanding to know if I was still her best friend. In the past, to make her happy and to preserve our friendship, under Zhou Yutong's watchful eye, I deleted quite a few friends I used to be close with. That's just how it is with our friendship now. I don't believe she's generous enough to tolerate someone like me barging into her picture-perfect romance. So she would never bring me up in front of Rong Li. As I looked at her with hopeful anticipation, stammering and failing to give a proper explanation, Zhou Yutong's expression grew increasingly dark. She pulled the skincare products I gave her right out of her own backpack and tossed them aside. "You're the one staying up all night with a sallow complexion. You should keep this stuff for yourself. I don't need it." Zhou Yutong snorted coldly, slung her bag over her shoulder, and headed for the bronze mirror. I grabbed her arm and asked with feigned concern, Tong, is it safe for you to go alone? Maybe I should." "Stop it," Zhou Yutong snapped, wrenching her hand from mine. Her face was livid, and she was just a hair's breadth away from pointing her finger right in my face and cursing me out. Perhaps she still remembered Rong Li's words, thinking I might be useful later, so she didn't put it too harshly. Zhou Yutong just said in a low voice, "Didn't you say how awful everything was in ancient times? No electricity, no internet, not even a decent toilet. Let me go first and scout things out. If even I can manage to live well there, it won't be too late for me to call you over then, right?" I held on to her, unwilling to let go, and wanted to say more. but Zhou Yutong had no desire to continue this entanglement with me. She grabbed her luggage, turned, and ran straight towards the bronze mirror, from behind. I clung desperately to her luggage, shouting, "Tong Tong, Tong Tong, wait." Zhou Yutong stamped her foot in frustration and snapped angrily, "Let go of me." The more I tried to stop her from leaving, the more determined she became to go. In a final effort to break free from my grasp, she even abandoned her suitcase and leaped straight into the bronze mirror. In the blink of an eye, Zhou Yutong vanished from my sight. I pushed aside her suitcase, packed with seeds and various tool manuals, and crouched down, carefully wrapping it in cloth. I picked up that strange mirror. Had I not experienced it myself, I could scarcely have imagined that a bronze mirror, no larger than a palm, could bridge past and present, let alone use blood to transport a person between two eras. It was an indescribably eerie feeling. 6. I carefully put the mirror away and settled into the first truly peaceful sleep I'd had since my rebirth. I just never expected that the next morning, I wouldn't be woken by my alarm, but by the sound of Zhou Yutong calling, "Xin Xin," from within the mirror. "Xin Xin, you're finally awake." Zhou Yutong was shouting excitedly from her place in the mirror. After just one night apart, she had already changed into ancient-style robes, adorned with gold and silver. Aside from her shock of blonde hair, she actually looked the part. I rubbed my eyes, but before I could even speak, Zhou Yutong excitedly launched into the story of how she ended up in ancient times. "You have no idea. Last night I literally fell right into my Rong Li's arms. Then, I accidentally hit the music button, and guess what? That idiot guard of his just sliced my phone clean in half." Zhou Yutong grew more and more indignant as she spoke, holding up the two broken pieces of her phone for me to see. Squinting, I noticed with sharp eyes that something red seemed to be smeared on Zhou Yutong's pure white phone case, the one printed with her idol. A thought flashed through my mind. I ventured to ask, "So, how did Rong Li deal with that guard?" "How else?" Zhou Yutong shrugged, her tone dripping with disdain. "He smashed my phone, so Rong Li immediately had his hand cut off and ordered him dragged out for 100 lashes with the army cane. Serves him right. Who told him to smash my phone? Now I can't even watch my shows over here." "At least that useless guard was good for something. He let me video call you. First his hand was cut off, then 100 lashes. There's no way he survived that." I bit my lip, and suddenly, it all made sense. In my past life, no matter how desperately I called out, I could never get Zhou Yutong to answer me through the mirror, because I didn't have enough blood to serve as a medium. There was simply no way for me to open this channel. No wonder Zhou Yutong could only ever wait for Rong Li to seek her out, because people in modern times can't easily draw blood, only those in ancient times could. Just thinking about how Rong Li's face, with those blood-stained hands holding a bronze mirror, would get all lovey-dovey with Zhou Yutong every night makes me sick to my stomach. "Oh, right." Zhou Yutong then changed her tone and said to me, "Could you buy me a new phone and bring it over? And don't forget to download my brother's latest drama for me, thanks a bunch." After saying that, Zhou Yutong gave me a wink, looking utterly charming and playful. Moments later, her face slowly faded from the mirror. I rushed to the bathroom and threw up violently. 7. That afternoon, Zhou Yutong urged me again through the bronze mirror to hurry up and give her what she wanted. "Bring me everything. My phone, the daily essentials, and those 2 boxes of my stuff. Oh, and I need a neck fan. Wait. Actually, get me 2. I'll give one to Rong Li. It's sweltering here. Also, grab me more snacks and instant noodles. The food here is awful." Zhou Yutong chattered into the mirror. "Hurry up and get it all to me. I need it ASAP." She seems to be treating this time travel like a vacation. She probably thinks I'm her safety net out here, that I can just send her modern gadgets so she can live a cushy life in the past. But when did I ever agree to that? Tapping on the keyboard, I casually replied, "I don't know how to use this." "How can you not know how to use something this simple? Are you stupid? Just put the thing on the bronze mirror." "I don't dare to," I replied, still nonchalant. Zhou Yutong finally picked up on something from my words. "Xin Xin, what do you mean by that? Are you refusing to help me on purpose?" Zhou Yutong's sharp accusations pierced through the bronze mirror, reaching my ears with undiminished venom. "Are you even human? After all I've done for you, you won't even do this one little thing for me. I get it now. You're just jealous that Rong Li likes me and not you." so you're trying to spite me, Li Xian, you're such a bitch. Sure, your features might be a tiny bit prettier than mine, but so what? Rong Li still likes me, not you. Zhou Yutong's voice grew louder and more shrill, clearly furious. Fine, don't help me then. Zhou Yutong can do just fine here even without that stuff. I really misjudged you, Li Xian, I swear. No matter how much you beg me in the future, I will never be your friend again. After hurling a torrent of abuse at me, Zhou Yutong abruptly disconnected. I remained silent. After reviewing what I had just written, I calmly shut down the computer. The bronze mirror fell utterly silent, not making another sound. Zhou Yutong's urging was truly frantic. It was painfully obvious she was struggling to adapt to life in ancient times. Rong Li's world existed within a feudal society. Forget about the lack of electricity, internet, or air conditioning. Just the coarse, barely edible food alone would be enough to drive any modern person insane. However, I believe that for Zhou Yutong, even all of that is still far from enough. My gaze fell upon the suitcase not far away, which was packed with seeds and books. What Zhou Yutong needed were food, water, and daily necessities. These things aren't particularly important, however, the seeds Rong Li requested, along with various reference books, would be highly beneficial to that world. If I'm not mistaken, once Zhou Yutong fails to get the items from me, Rong Li will make a personal move. After midnight, the bronze mirror began to glow once again. Just as expected, a piece of paper materialized out of thin air. Frowning, I walked over, picked it up, and froze for a moment, because it was a portrait of me. It wasn't a detailed drawing, just a few simple strokes. Yet it perfectly captured me standing there in my pajamas, looking utterly stunned. The paper was slightly creased, as if it had been pored over many times, yet one could still sense the care with which it had been kept, and there, in the corner of the page, was Rong Li's name, perfectly imprinted. Rong Li didn't say a word, yet it felt as though he had spoken volumes to me through this portrait. We had only met that one time. Yet he had remembered my face so clearly that he had captured it on paper. Rong Li sent over a portrait of me. It was a blatant test. He was testing me, trying to see if I'd be as easy to win over as Zhou Yutong. If I were a lovesick fool like Zhou Yutong, I'd probably be overthinking what his intentions were. Does Rong Li have a bit of a crush on me, too? But I'm not Zhou Yutong, and I'm not a hopeless romantic. To Zhou Yutong, Rong Li's face is lethally attractive, but to me, his face is a recurring nightmare I can't shake. With an impassive expression, I put the portrait away. After a moment's thought, I placed the daily necessities Zhou Yutong had asked for on the bronze mirror. A moment later, a flash of light passed, and the bag containing the items vanished before my eyes. I waited quietly for a few seconds, and then Rong Li's face appeared on the bronze mirror. Goddess, it's been a long time. Rong Li's gaze settled on my face. It just hit me. You're even more beautiful than I remembered. He looked at me deeply, offering a pure, unguarded smile. Gritting my teeth against the faint, stinging pain on my skin, I managed to reply, "You too." 8. After that day, Rong Li began incessantly talking to me through the bronze mirror, just as he had done with Zhou Yutong before, only now with even more fervor. I couldn't stand the sight of him. Even the sound of his voice made my skin crawl with a phantom ache. The memory of being steamed alive in a massive steamer in my past life instilled in me a profound dread of Rong Li. I'd only reluctantly pick up maybe 1 out of every 10 times Rong Li called. Eventually, he figured out the pattern and stopped contacting me so frequently. He only reached out at set times. It was only then that our conversations gradually got down to business. He wants me to change my attitude towards him, to become his new ally, and to pass on everything Zhou Yutong left behind to him. What I want to know is whether he is also a reincarnated soul. I cautiously probed him with a few questions, and only from his fragmented words did I discover the truth. In truth, Rong Li has not been reborn. He has merely had a few intermittent dreams of his past life. Rong Li sensed I would be useful to him, but he didn't know exactly how. In his dreams, I was probably as dumb as a doorknob, so he didn't put his guard up around me. I also easily gleaned a lot of information about his era straight from his mouth. I know that, with Zhou Yutong's help, he has won victory after victory. Now, with his powerful army and strong forces, he controls the court, more an emperor in all but name. Occasionally, Rong Li would, accidentally, let me catch a glimpse of Zhou Yutong's current life. In the mirror, I saw Zhou Yutong on the other side, pacing restlessly back and forth in a cramped garden, surrounded by a throng of servants. Rongli then said to me, feigning nonchalance, "If you could come, she would have another sister for company. You needn't worry about how to live here. I'll arrange for 20 maidservants to attend to you day and night. For travel, there will be sedan chairs and carriages. You won't need to walk a step yourself." Rongli watched the expression on my face and continued, "Nor will you have to live like you did in that other world, constantly having to please others and toiling from dawn till dusk like a beast of burden. Look at her. Here, everything is handled by the people below. All she has to do is eat, drink, and be merry." Rong Li's insinuation was crystal clear. I almost couldn't hold back my laughter when I heard it. Perhaps Zhou Yutong had been whispering a lot of negative things about the modern world in his ear, but no matter what, the modern era is a million times better than his backward little corner of the world. A garden full of mud might seem novel at first glance, but day after day, it just becomes dull and tiresome. Besides, how far can a sedan chair or carriage really take you? Can they compare to the comfort of a high-speed train or an airplane? I smiled and didn't press the topic further, simply saying, "Her feelings for you are genuine. I wish you both happiness." After using it many times, I've started to get the hang of how this bronze mirror works. After saying that, I swiped the back of the phone and decisively ended the call. I didn't need to guess. I knew Rong Li's expression on the other end must have been awful, because aside from that initial probe from Rong Li, after I replied with a few things, I never sent him anything again. Rong Li spent a long time dropping hints, but he couldn't get the seed from me, nor could he trick me into going over. It was clear he was getting rather impatient. 9. And of course, the one who was even more annoyed was Zhou Yutong. She had originally thought she was coming here to live a blissful, happy life for two with Rong Li. Little did she expect that, having already stooped to coming to this place. As a result, Rong Li spent all day thinking only of finding me, racking his brains daily to talk to me, and his every word was filled with flattery. He completely disregarded Zhou Yutong's feelings. Leaving her alone in the cramped and dreary courtyard, Zhou Yutong endured it again and again, until finally, on this day, she could bear it no longer. In the early hours of the morning, Zhou Yutong's face appeared in the bronze mirror. Her once plump and fair face had become gaunt and sallow, looking somewhat malnourished. When she saw me, she was so furious she was grinding her teeth, her expression contorted with rage. "Li Xian, you shameless bitch, why are you clinging to my man every single day? You deliberately held on to my things, didn't you, just for this moment, so Rong Li would have to come find you." Zhou Yutong was screaming at me hysterically. Suddenly remembering something, she slowly calmed down, stroking her swollen belly. She looked at me with a knowing, almost mocking smile. "It's no use, I'm telling you, I'm already carrying his child. Stop dreaming about him. You're not worthy, you don't have my nerve. You could never give up everything for Rong Li, but I could. That's why I'm the one who deserves to stand by his side." I looked at her calmly, seeing the blood on her fingertips, and could only feel a pang of pity for her. She abandoned everything in her modern life to go find a man. She thought love alone could sustain her, but in reality, she gained nothing and lost all her advantages. "So what?" I said to her flatly. "Do you really think he loves you? Do you believe that if I just say the word, after he kills you with his own hands, I'll take the seed and go to him, Rong Li would personally strangle you?" Zhou Yutong was clearly stunned by my question. It took her a long moment before she replied, "That's impossible. The bond between Rong Li and me is beyond your comprehension. We've exchanged vows before heaven and earth, and our names are entered in the clan register. He promised to love me until the day I die." Zhou Yutong gritted her teeth, but I could clearly see a trace of unease on her face. "Is that so?" I asked with a faint, ambiguous smile as I took out the portrait Rong Li had given me earlier. "Well then, care to make a bet with me?" Zhou Yutong stared at the portrait, her face deathly pale, her lips completely drained of color. Then I said to her softly, "If you win this bet, I'll cut off all contact with him. You two can live happily ever after. And if you lose, that's okay too." I smiled gently. "I'll find a way to bring you home." Zhou Yutong was still hesitating, but after I said, "Let's go home," the indecision on her face completely vanished. "I trust Rong Li," Zhou Yutong said with a smile. "All right, I'll take that bet." Xin, you really are my very best friend. I just smiled and didn't say another word. 10. Zhou Yutong cared for nothing in the world, except for Rongli, and the love he gave her, which she believed was hers alone. She couldn't believe Rongli didn't love her. After all, he had spilled rivers of blood and trampled countless lives, all just to whisper, "Good night," in Zhou Yutong's ear before she slept. If this doesn't count as love, then what on earth does? Zhou Yutong was brimming with confidence, but that very night, I shattered it with just 2 sentences. I only sent Rongli a bag of Zhou Yutong's favorite potato chips, along with a note that read, "Please don't contact me anymore. I don't want Tong Tong to be upset. Besides, she's carrying your child now. I don't want to upset her any further. I'll shatter the mirror and leave. Please, treat her well from now on." Those 2 sentences instantly put Rongli on edge. He hasn't even gotten his hands on the modern technology and essential items he wanted yet. There's no way he'd just let me walk away so easily, especially since Zhou Yutong arrived. All she's done is eat, drink, and have fun. All while complaining about how terrible this place is. She could no longer miraculously deliver a pile of supplies to aid him like she used to. In Rong Li's eyes, without all those modern conveniences, Zhou Yutong was just an utterly ordinary woman. This woman's only remaining use was that she still had a modern friend, namely, me, who could help him, if, because of Zhou Yutong, I were to truly shatter the mirror and cut off all contact with Rong Li. It would be a tremendous loss for him. No. Don't ignore me. Rong Li's face appeared on the bronze mirror, etched with urgency. His fine, delicate features were brimming with reluctance and panic. I don't want her to come between us and create this rift. I know it's because of her that you won't open your heart to me, but you do have feelings for me, don't you? Rong Li gazed at me with deep affection, his humble reflection in the mirror making him all the more pitiable. Yet the words that escaped his lips were like those of a demon. I know you would never accept sharing a husband. I can make her get rid of the child, send her away somewhere, ensure she never appears to trouble you again for the rest of her life. The moment his voice fell, Zhou Yutong, who had been hiding outside the door, charged in like a madwoman. What do you mean, Rong Li? What are you trying to say? Zhou Yutong was weeping as if her heart was being torn apart, frantically pounding her fists against Rong Li's body. Rong Li, however, grabbed her hand in a swift countermove and violently hurled her to the ground. Stop making a scene here. The smile vanished completely from Rong Li's face, replaced by a terrifying rage. Someone, take her away. You can't do this to me, Rong Li. I'm carrying your child. Zhou Yutong clutched her stomach, sobbing. Have you forgotten how I went to great lengths to buy rice and grain for you in the past? Back then, you said I was the only wife you'd ever have in this lifetime. I gave up my modern life for you, coming here to live in hardship. Do you have any idea how much I've sacrificed for you? How dare you treat me like this? Over by the bronze mirror, the commotion was in full swing, yet I remained silent. I just watched quietly as Rong Li, furious and flustered, rushed over and slapped Zhou Yutong several times. As Zhou Yutong was wailing, about to be gagged and dragged away, I pointed in her direction, gesturing towards her stomach. My lips parted slightly, and I silently mouthed the words, "Go home," to Zhou Yutong. But soon, the bronze mirror darkened, and the image vanished completely. 11. I don't know if Zhou Yutong will pick up on my hint, but I know for sure that Rong Li will notice my little maneuver. I'm betting he's clever enough to figure it out and put it to the test. I have no idea how Rong Li and Zhou Yutong discovered in their past lives that my life could serve as a passage to bring them from ancient times to the modern era. But if my bones can act as a bridge, then the child in Zhou Yutong's womb, a modern woman herself, should be capable of the same. It's just a pity that since that day, the bronze mirror has remained silent for a long time. It was as ordinary as any other mirror, as if everything that had happened before was just a figment of my imagination. I tried smearing the bronze mirror with store-bought chicken and duck blood, but there was no reaction. The blood of cats and dogs did cause the mirror's surface to ripple slightly, but the effect was minimal. It wasn't until human blood was applied that the mirror's surface quickly revealed the scene from the other side. The screen went dark, accompanied by a slight jostling. Rong Li must have been carrying the mirror with her, though the visual was gone. The piercing screams from the other side were unmistakable. You can't do this to me. Zhou Yutong's voice strained with struggle. Rong Li, I saved your life. You can't. Rong Li's voice had lost its former clarity and brightness, now tinged with a hint of gloom. He seemed to be standing before Zhou Yutong, looking down at her as he said, "The high priest says the sacred mirror requires a sacrifice of flesh and blood to grant a wish. The blood of ordinary people is useless, and I can't bear to use yours, so, it must be the child in your womb. Be good now, it's just a child. We can have others, this isn't just my child. It's yours too." Zhou Yutong wept with a heart-wrenching sob. "No, please don't be so cruel to me, I'm begging you, Rongli, just let me go home, I'll take the child and leave, and I swear I'll never see you again. Is that not enough?" She pleaded desperately, begging the man before her to spare the child in her womb, yet, Rongli showed no sign of stopping. Before I could even process what was happening, I heard Zhou Yutong let out a blood-curdling scream. Then came the sickening, tearing sound of a dagger slicing forcefully through flesh. Witnessing it through the bronze mirror sent a chill of terror down my spine. Even from the safety of reality, the bronze mirror tumbled from Rong Li's embrace and clattered onto the floor. I couldn't see Zhou Yutong, only hear her agonized screams fading into whimpers. Then, a flood of crimson blood filled my vision, completely covering the bronze mirror in a horrifying, lurid red. The next instant, a handsome face suddenly appeared amidst the crimson. Before I could even process it, I was already locking eyes with Rongli. For some reason, my heart began to race with panic. He was holding something, his hands covered in blood. Upon seeing it was me, a brilliant smile suddenly curved his lips. "I'll be right there for you," he said. "You must be absolutely delighted." My breath hitched, and I immediately cut off the feed. The sight of Rongli just now had hit me far too hard. That same suffocating feeling of being trapped, of screaming for help to a deaf heaven and an unheeding earth, came rushing back over me. He knew, he would come, and it wouldn't be long now. I don't know why, but I just had this quiet certainty in my heart. 12. At 3 in the morning, the bronze mirror erupted in a brilliant flash of light, instantly illuminating the entire room. My hands clenched the armrests nervously, and I even held my breath without thinking. In the blink of an eye, Rongli appeared before me, clad in armor, spear in hand, a truly awe-inspiring sight. Xin, spotting me, Rongli tilted his head and flashed me a brilliant smile as he walked towards me, step by step. "I can't believe I'm really seeing you here." The smile on his face grew wider and more radiant, yet it was a sinister, viperous grin. "I've been thinking about you for so long." As his words fell, he thrust his longsword straight at my face, but all that followed was a sharp clang. Rong Li's spear was solidly blocked by the bulletproof glass. Rong Li stared in disbelief at the flawless, transparent glass before him, then swung his weapon with all his might. The spear slashed down from above with brutal force, producing a deafening crash. "How is this possible?" Rong Li gaped at the unblemished glass, his gaze shifting to me. He gritted his teeth and demanded, "What kind of sorcery did you use?" The black curtain behind me descended slowly, revealing a massive machine and researchers bustling hurriedly back and forth. Someone shouted, "How's the data monitoring coming along? Everything must be documented. We're detecting spatial fluctuations. Pull up the footage from all cameras." Now, everyone hurried past, and the occasional glances they cast at Rongli lacked the shock or fear he had anticipated. The way everyone looked at Rongli was more akin to observing a lab rat awaiting study. Chen Jia, the head of the research institute, walked over to my side and patted my shoulder. She stared at the objects on Rongli with amazement, then said to me, "Well done, Shaoli. I can't believe this is actually real. Your mission is complete. Don't worry, we'll take it from here." I nodded at her and offered a shy smile. "Are you looking to die? What is this place? Release me now, and I might just spare your lives. I am the regent of the Duan Kong kingdom. If you do not release me at once, I will lead my army of 1,000,000 men to raze this place to the ground." Rongli could hear our words, trembling with rage from head to toe. He viciously thrust his spear at the glass once more. He did have some strength in him. With one fierce thrust, he actually managed to crack it, seeing a chance to break free. Rong Li's eyes lit up instantly. He immediately began stabbing at the glass with even greater, frantic force, using his longsword. "Chemical unit, stand ready." At Sister Chen's command, the small chamber trapping Rongli instantly filled with a billowing smoke. In just a minute, Rongli felt all his strength drain away. He could no longer grip the long spear in his hand, and his body went limp as he collapsed to the ground. What have you done to me? He stammered, staring at us in disbelief, as Rongli stood there. Stunned, I flashed him a broad smile and said softly, "Welcome to the modern world." 13. After Zhou Yutong jumped into the bronze mirror, I immediately handed this bizarre artifact over to the authorities. At first, no one believed that this mirror could truly bridge past and present, connecting to another world. That was until Zhou Yutong reached through the mirror and demanded I pass the items to her. It wasn't until Rong Li's portrait materialized out of thin air, appearing before everyone through the bronze mirror. The bronze mirror instantly became the center of attention. Anyone or any location connected to this mirror was immediately placed under lockdown. My every move was under the watchful eye of the authorities. Zhou Yutong said to me, "Could you buy me a new phone and bring it over? Oh, and get me some more snacks and instant noodles while you're at it. The food here is terrible." Zhou Yutong chattered away in the mirror. "Hurry up and bring it to me, I really need it." I deliberately put on a pained expression and cast a pleading look towards Sister Chen, who was observing the data nearby. Sister Chen shook her head at me with a stern expression, explaining the reasoning to me repeatedly. "Don't let your heart soften just because she's your friend and secretly pass things to her. Promise me you won't make a single move until we have the results of our research. You have no idea what consequences could arise from the exchange of items between these two worlds, so, no matter how much I ached for my dear friend, I would never give her a single thing." Later, Zhou Yutong furiously cursed at me. "How shameless can you be? Why are you always hanging around my man?" I put on a deeply wounded act, deliberately provoking her with my words. I wanted her to see Rong Li for who he truly was, to snap her out of it. In the end, I dropped that loaded line. "I'll find a way to get you home." Sister Chen looked at me with utter exasperation, sighed several times, and told me to try to keep my mouth shut in the future. "I know you want her back, but, well," Sister Chen seemed to hesitate, her words caught in her throat. I kept my head bowed and offered no reply. I harbor no such noble notion of returning good for evil. My only thought is a venomous one: an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, due to the bronze mirror's property of absorbing blood. The researchers experimented with various types of blood and flesh, ultimately focusing their attention on the tissues of higher organisms. After I found out, I subtly gestured towards Zhou Yutong's stomach in the next scene, trying to give her a hint. Sister Chen was so fed up with me that next time, she just put me and that mirror in separate rooms. Things didn't settle down until Rong Li actually time-traveled from ancient times to the present day. Rong Li was locked up in the research institute and subjected to all sorts of tests. Once, he bit his own finger, trying to secretly use his blood to travel back, but the staff caught him. After that, he lost all personal space and was strapped to a chair day and night, screaming about killing everyone. I would often ask Sister Chen for permission to use the bronze mirror, hoping to contact Zhou Yutong, who lived in ancient times. Unfortunately, that mirror had been placed under strict protection, making it impossible for me to use it again. Gradually, I moved on from the whole affair and started a new chapter in my life. Then one day, a year later, I unexpectedly received a call from Sister Chen. "Your friend Zhou Yutong has connected to the bronze mirror." Really? My heart sank. I wanted to ask more, but the voice on the other end spoke first. "She was locked in a dungeon the whole time. She only managed to escape 2 days ago, taking advantage of the chaos in Duankang Kingdom. She's begging us, in tears, to bring her back. Duankang Kingdom is at war. Corpses litter the land everywhere. She tried countless methods with the bronze mirror, but still couldn't reopen this passageway. Later, we came to believe she was the sole anomaly of that era. Her only connection to the modern world was herself. Or perhaps her child, but after being subjected to a crude cesarean without any medical care, her body was fundamentally damaged, leaving her unable to conceive again. If Sister Chen said so, then Zhou Yutong must have tried using her own blood as well. Even so, she could never manage to open the door to this world. It's likely she would have to spend the rest of her life trapped in that chaotic era. How could someone raised in the modern world ever adapt to life over there? Zhou Yutong must be hating her past self right now, the one who jumped without a second thought. I was lost in thought when I suddenly heard Sister Chen say, "Oh, right, she asked me to pass on a message to you," she said. "She regrets it." Sister Chen's voice trailed off for a long moment at the end. I suddenly smiled and thought about asking her, were Zhou Yutong's exact words, "I regret it, Xin, why didn't you stop me back then?" Why, well, it doesn't matter, that was her choice to make. I hung up the phone and continued shopping at the supermarket in good spirits. Story 2. My husband died in the earthquake while trying to save his white moonlight's daughter. He left a will bequeathing all his assets to them. Just when everyone thought I would spare no expense to fight them for the inheritance, I instead sold off the shares that were mine and my daughter's lifeline, and left City B with her. The moment I saw Kian's corpse, my anxious heart finally settled. A magnitude 7 earthquake struck City X. Despite her in-laws' objections, Kian insisted on going to the disaster area, all because Marigold's daughter Evangeline, his unrequited love, had gone missing while traveling in City X. Upon hearing the news, he immediately hit the road without stopping. As it turned out, he never came back after leaving. 1. He was hit on the head by a falling billboard and died on the spot. When Kian's parents-in-law heard the news of his death, they cried uncontrollably. I pretended to offer some comfort, but my mother-in-law turned her anger toward me. "What kind of wife are you? You didn't even try to stop Kian from going to such a dangerous place." As she scolded me word by word, I maintained my usual timid and cautious demeanor. "Mother-in-law, it's my fault. I should have stopped Kian," I said, dabbing the corners of my eyes with a tissue. Even after hearing this, my mother-in-law remained unsatisfied and was about to continue reprimanding me. The father-in-law on the side tried to mediate, saying, "All right, say no more, Alina didn't mean it." The father-in-law and mother-in-law played good cop and bad cop respectively. In my past life, I thought the mother-in-law was petty and maliciously domineering, while the father-in-law was just a bit weak, but it wasn't until after Kian's death that Marigold brought Evangeline into the household and took away most of the property. My father-in-law abandoned his usual caution and forced me to surrender my shares, leaving me with nothing. When I refused, he had someone run me over with a truck. After meeting my demise, my soul didn't pass on but instead watched as my daughter suffered endless mistreatment. My in-laws always favored sons over daughters. After my daughter was born, they openly and covertly pressured me and Kian to have a second child. Naturally, I was unwilling to agree. I was born in the countryside, with 5 older sisters and 1 younger brother in my family. Every time we had fish, the belly meat went to my brother, the head and tail to my father, and the soup to my mother. As for my sisters and me, we could only pick at the fish bones. My parents originally intended for me to follow my sister's path, finish junior high and then go out to work to help support the family. When I reached the right age, they planned to marry me off to a good family to earn a dowry. But the so-called good families they talked about were either crippled or mentally disabled. I refused, and my father grabbed me by the hair, beating and kicking me right in front of my teachers and classmates. It wasn't until the security guard arrived that he finally toned it down a bit. He glared at me fiercely, cursing loudly, saying I'd eaten his food for over a decade and that should be enough. Told me not to delude myself into thinking a few more years of education could turn me into a golden phoenix. Hearing those words, I could only find them laughable. Ever since I can remember, I had to work alongside my sisters, taking on all kinds of chores big and small, whether it was farming, feeding chickens, cleaning the house, or looking after our younger brother. It was all done by me and my sisters. Yet not only did we not receive a single penny in wages, we even had to send money back home. How ironic. Later, I still managed to attend high school, thanks to my homeroom teacher who couldn't bear to see it and persuaded my father with a few words. She said that with a higher diploma, the better job I could find in the future, and the bride price I could receive would also rise accordingly. Dad agreed, but told the homeroom teacher that he wouldn't spend a single cent to support my education. Fortunately, the homeroom teacher funded part of my expenses, and I also applied for financial aid, which allowed me to successfully complete high school. During the college entrance exams, I performed exceptionally well and got admitted to Tsinghua or Peking University. It was also during my sophomore year that I met Kian. He was a year older than me, witty and humorous, coming from a well-off family. He was the secret crush of many junior girls on campus. I was no exception. But due to my inferiority complex about my family background, I could only bury my feelings deep in my heart. Later, he confessed his feelings to me. Amidst the teasing cheers, I looked into his deeply affectionate eyes, my heart racing. I thought he truly loved me. After all, since we got together, he took great care of me, always asking if I was cold or hungry. After marriage, he even transferred half of his shares to me, saying it was for my security. Until Marigold returned to the country with Evangeline after their divorce, and the usually disciplined Kian got completely drunk. He was drunkenly causing a scene on the street, murmuring the name Marigold as if no one else was around. Only then did I realize that in his heart, he could never forget his white moonlight. If he can't forget, then let him not forget. After graduating from university, I came to understand one truth: even though Kian and I are in a relationship, he has his own choices and may not necessarily share them with me. He can choose to continue his studies or enter his family's company as part of the management. As for me, while I'm working hard and running around, I also have to guard against my parents forcing me to go back and get married. I haven't told them about Kian because, knowing their temperament, if they knew about Kian's family background, they would cling to me like leeches, sucking my blood. I knew, but I didn't make it public. Just like in my previous life, I joined the Kian group and secured a major order worth 1 billion. This order became my stepping stone into Kian's family. My mother-in-law didn't like me from the start. For our first meeting, she arrived an hour late as a power move. Her ideal daughter-in-law candidate was Marigold. Not only did she grow up with Kian as childhood sweethearts, but her family background was also significantly better. Marigold's family had long been a multinational conglomerate with global business operations and trillion-dollar assets. Marigold is the only daughter. Marrying her means having one foot already in the vast business empire of Marigold's family. Unfortunately, Marigold's father looked down on Kian, considering him just a good-for-nothing rich second generation. He broke up Marigold and made her marry the son of a family friend, emigrating abroad. The third day after Marigold returned was mine and Kian's wedding anniversary. Every year on this day, he would always prepare surprises for me, but this time, a single phone call from Marigold captured his attention. He grabbed his coat and rushed out the door. The candle on the table was still burning. Unlike my past life, I didn't cling to him desperately or beg him to stay. After he left, I didn't wait for him, but quietly finished my meal alone. When Kian returned, he brought the latest gemstone necklace to apologize to me. He embraced me and whispered a gentle apology in my ear. "Darling, it's my fault. Please don't be angry, okay?" I chose to forgive him. After all, he didn't have many years left to live. 2 years later, an earthquake struck X City. Marigold happened to be taking her daughter on a trip. As early as 3 days ago, they both boarded a plane and left City X. Unfortunately, Kian didn't know that Marigold's distress call came through, and I chose to add fuel to the fire. In my past life, upon learning he was heading to the disaster zone, I begged him desperately not to risk his life, yet he mercilessly shook off my hand, calling me a venomous-hearted serpent. He said, "I've already married him, and he won't change his heart." Marigold is not only the white moonlight of his youth, but also his friend. Evangeline is practically his goddaughter. He can't just stand by and watch her die. Evangeline is his goddaughter. And Fiora is also his biological daughter, but ever since Marigold returned to the country, he never accompanied Fiora even once. Even before his death, he left a will for Evangeline and Marigold to inherit his property. He gave no thought to Fiora at all, never imagining the suffering she endured after my death. The year after I died, a zombie outbreak struck City B. Fiora was thrown out of the house by her cowardly in-laws to divert the attention of the zombie horde. The in-laws managed to hold out until the rescue team arrived and entered the base to live safely. Marigold stood by watching, even slapping Fiora twice when she kept crying and making a scene. She helped the in-laws throw Fiora out the door, remained indifferent while Fiora kept knocking on the door for help. I later found out that Evangeline was actually Kian's illegitimate daughter. She was only half a year younger than Fiora. At that time, he was on a 6-month business trip abroad. I didn't want to worry him, so I only shared good news. My mother-in-law ignored my postpartum pain and forced me to breastfeed Fiora myself. During my multiple breakdowns, Kian was busy accompanying Marigold through her confinement. No wonder he left his assets to them. My daughter was gnawed to death. Her once beautiful face became unrecognizable. As I looked at her mutilated body, overwhelming rage engulfed me. If there's a next life, I'll make sure those who harmed us mother and daughter pay in blood. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day Kian was leaving for X City. With a smile, I packed his luggage for him and handed him the ID card my in-laws had hidden. In my past life, I was too foolish, letting him miss the aftershocks and live an extra half year. Kian had long been diagnosed with brain cancer and didn't have much time left. In his final moments, he was still tightly holding Marigold's hand, apologizing to her, since he was so devoted. Being able to die for his white moonlight was his blessing. On the day of the funeral, Marigold arrived with a lawyer. The moment the will was announced, she glanced at me with a hint of smugness. After the lawyer finished reading the will, Marigold squeezed out 2 tears and said to me, "Alina, I'm truly sorry. I never expected Kian would make such a will. But don't worry, I won't fight you over it." In her past life, she said the same thing. But even though she didn't fight for it, her in-laws couldn't sit still. The Kian Group's transformation failed, and its funding chain was nearly broken. They coveted Marigold's enormous family fortune and, to win her over, handed the inheritance to her without hesitation. The Kian Group was brought back to life, and the in-laws continued to enjoy their lives. Thinking of this, I suppressed the hatred in my heart and forced a smile. Since it was Kian's dying wish, I naturally agreed. Seeing that I didn't stop her, Marigold looked slightly surprised. My mother-in-law, however, was quite satisfied with my tactfulness and said, "It's good that you know, I never approved of you marrying into our family in the first place, yet Kian fancied you, swore he'd marry no one else." Had Kian married Marigold back then, how could he have died so young? Kian only married me because he saw my impoverished family background. No backing, no support, that way he could freely reunite with his beloved white moonlight. Even when making his will, he never feared I'd seize what belonged to Marigold and her daughter. "It's my fault, please don't be angry, mother-in-law." The day after the funeral ended, I approached Jules, the competitor of the Kian Group. I got straight to the point and stated my purpose. When he learned I wanted to sell my 15% stake, he couldn't believe it. At this time, the Kian Group, though in decline, remained the industry leader. In his eyes, my decision to abandon the still rising stocks was utterly incomprehensible, but only I knew that 2.5 years later, the zombie crisis would erupt. Money became worthless. The only things of value were food and water. I can't stay in City B with my daughter. Thinking this, I continued, Jules also knows that my husband left all his assets to outsiders. He showed no mercy, so why should I hold back? 5 billion, I'll sign the contract as soon as the money hits my account. 5 billion, that's less than half the market price. I've investigated Jules. His cash flow can barely cover these 5 billion, not a penny more. He hesitated briefly, then probed. 5 billion is no small sum. How about 3 billion? I'll settle for half the shares. I shook my head in refusal, though after the apocalypse, money would lose all value. The more money I can get now, the more supplies I can prepare. Jules finally gritted his teeth and agreed. The moment I saw the money hit the account, I signed my name without hesitation. Back home, I packed up all the jewelry Kian gave me, along with the unopened luxury items, and took everything with me. As I wheeled 2 large suitcases through the living room, my mother-in-law was chatting and laughing with Marigold. When mentioning me and my daughter, my mother-in-law spoke with disdain. "That little girl is nowhere near as smart and capable as Evangeline. I heard Evangeline won many major piano awards abroad, truly a remarkable young talent." I left through the back door, sold what I had in my hands, and made over 20 million. After completing everything, I booked a high-speed train ticket leaving City B at noon tomorrow. Then, I went to the school to pick up my daughter. Holding my daughter's soft little hand, my heart became incredibly determined at that moment. I will survive the apocalypse with her. Fiora asked me curiously, "Mom, my vacation hasn't started yet. Where are you taking me?" I stroked my daughter's head and gazed at her tenderly. "Mommy will take you away from City B to play." "Okay." My daughter looked puzzled, but couldn't suppress her playful nature and broke into a smile. But soon, she hesitated and asked cautiously, "Won't Grandma be angry?" The most frequent thing my mother-in-law says about my daughter is that she's too stupid. My daughter's exam results ranked second in her grade. Yet in my mother-in-law's eyes, she was deemed foolish and not hardworking enough. She constantly belittled my daughter, criticizing everything from her appearance to her academic performance. Over time, My daughter became even more cautious. At social gatherings, children her age carried themselves with grace and poise, only she kept stubbornly clutching the hem of my dress, refusing to let go, which made everyone burst into laughter. Not only did my in-laws not stop them, but they also allowed them to hurt my daughter's self-esteem. Thinking of this made me feel even worse. In my past life, I advised many times, but Kian thought I was making a mountain out of a molehill. Fiora is indeed a bit timid, and my mother wants to toughen her up. What would become of her when she grows up otherwise? What he called toughening up was making his young daughter learn to read people's expressions from an early age. I will never let my daughter repeat the mistakes I once made. I crouched down and picked up my daughter. It's fine, as long as Fiora is happy. The moment the high-speed train started moving, my daughter still couldn't contain her excitement. Too, she leaned excitedly against the window, watching the scenery flash by outside with a joyful expression. Seeing my daughter's smiling face made my heart soften. When we arrived in City Z, I checked into the pre-booked hotel with my daughter and took her to enjoy many delicious foods. As night fell, my daughter chattered like a little bird while riding the Ferris wheel. My phone buzzed with a message from my mother-in-law. Have you lost your mind, selling the shares to Jules? Do you still consider yourself part of Kian's family? What followed was a long string of obscenities. My mother-in-law considers herself a noble woman, looking down on both me and my daughter, but now, she curses without any regard for her status. I ignored her and directly chose to block her. I also blocked my father-in-law and my parents. After Kian's death in the previous life, my parents came knocking. They made a scene demanding I pay for my brother's fully purchased luxury apartment downtown. Calculating the time, they should be arriving soon, but this time, they won't find me and my daughter again, nor can they intercept her at the school gate after class, forcing her to hand over money. Affected by this incident, my once timid daughter became even more withdrawn. Before blocking my parents, I sent them a message, tell them Kian is dead, yet they wouldn't even leave the property to me and my daughter. I wanted to help my brother, but Kian's family guarded against me so tightly that I couldn't get any money. With these words, parents who love their child more than life itself would probably go to any lengths to make trouble at Kian's family. After playing with my daughter for 2 days, I also started preparing supplies. In the previous life, City Z was the first city where the nation established a survivor base. By sticking together, City Z survived several waves of zombie hordes and made it through. My daughter and I only needed to endure the first 6 months before we could enter the base to live. In this apocalyptic world, my daughter and I fighting alone would only lead to our own demise, with the state providing a safety net. The base wasn't as depicted in post-apocalyptic novels, full of scheming and power struggles where the weak could only sink to the bottom. All major bases implemented wartime controls, with all supplies uniformly distributed by designated personnel. In their past life, Marigold and Evangeline couldn't stand the communal living and chose to secretly leave the base. But without the base's protection and accustomed to a life of privilege, they struggled. After going out, she only survived for 10 hours before being surrounded by zombies and losing her life. At the moment of death, Marigold's eyes were still wide open. How could she have imagined? She thought that with food and water, she could survive with her daughter, but she forgot, zombies also form groups and even dodge bullets. This is also why the zombie crisis could persist globally in the previous life. I moved into a new home with my daughter. We hired a renovation team again to reinforce the doors and windows. While the construction was ongoing, I took my daughter to the supermarket for shopping. After the apocalypse, a bag of potato chips became as valuable as gold, and there was even a shortage in supply. When I told her she could take any snacks she wanted, my daughter was overjoyed but still only took 2 bags of potato chips before stopping. I've taken another 10 boxes of chocolates, 20 bags of potato chips, 20 packs of seaweed snacks, and 20 bags of assorted flavored jerky, plus 300 boxes of daily sanitary pads, overnight pads, and period panties, all from brands that haven't had any scandals. With these, my daughter and I will be well prepared for our periods and can change whenever needed. As for clothes and shoes, I've prepared 35 sets of various sizes, sports shoes and warm cotton shoes. Various sizes, 50 pairs prepared. Any more than this, the house can't accommodate. After leaving the supermarket, I loaded the supplies into the trunk. Before preparing to drive, I connected the pre-prepared surveillance system. My parents have rushed over, and these days, they've been making my in-laws' lives miserable. My mother grabbed Marigold by the hair, calling her a homewrecker and shameless. Marigold grew up being the center of attention and remained the little princess of the household even after marriage. She couldn't tolerate such treatment and fired back without hesitation. My mother couldn't comprehend her reasoning at all, only knowing she took her son's money. My mother-in-law, asserting her status, called security to drive my parents away. To everyone's surprise, my mother resorted to throwing a tantrum, rolling on the ground wailing. She lamented her miserable fate, saying even her daughter was a money-losing burden, and now her husband was stolen too, no matter how she made a scene. The security guards remained unmoved and drove her out. Now, my parents came to the gate of the villa area holding a banner. They made a scene, demanding an explanation from Kian's family. My mother-in-law sat on the sofa with a displeased look, bad-mouthing me to my father-in-law. I told you not to let Kian marry that Alina, and now even after he's gone there's no peace. Alina's mother is like a shrew, and who knows what that smell is on her. Just talking to her makes me nauseous, and her father. How shameless to even ask, expecting us to pay for her brother's house and car. He doesn't even consider how much money Alina has taken from our family all these years. Instead of going to his daughter, why is he making trouble with us? Hearing my mother-in-law's words, I couldn't help but laugh. After driving to the underground parking lot, I carried the things back home in several trips. There are still many things left to buy, but for now, there's no hurry. After returning home and putting my daughter to sleep, I went alone to the secondary bedroom and used a small knife to cut my finger. Immediately afterward, a portable space appeared in my mind. It was vast and boundless, seemingly endless. With a single thought, the supplies I had purchased entered the space. Time stands still in this space. Whatever you put in comes out unchanged. The only drawback is that it cannot hold living things. In my past life, I only discovered I possessed this space after I died. If I hadn't died, my daughter wouldn't have been so starving that she had to drink tap water. 2 years is too unpredictable. To avoid complications, I took my daughter to the police station to change our household registration. To prevent my parents from tracking me down, I went to a plastic surgery clinic, had the procedure, and retook my ID photo. The current me is worlds apart from who I used to be. Even if I passed my parents on the street, they wouldn't recognize me. I found a new school for my daughter so she could continue her education. Time flew by, and my parents couldn't find me or get the money, so they chose to appear on a mediation show. They tearfully played the role of loving parents for the cameras. In their portrayal, I became a gold-digging woman who despised poverty and refused to support them, wanting to sever ties. They tearfully declared that they would forgive me if only I would return home. The host also chimed in, urging me to repent and return to the right path. It's easy for him to talk without bearing any responsibility, advising abandoned girls to forgive their parents, and abused wives to forgive their husbands. No matter how hard they searched, I vanished without a trace, like a stone sinking into the sea. Half a year after the program aired, there was still no news of me. My parents grumbled and complained, still unwilling to give up and return to their hometown. But the money they had brought was nearly exhausted. When they were about to return, the younger brother refused to leave, throwing a tantrum to stay in the big city. He grew up obese and bloated, excessively spoiled by his parents. His decision to stay burdened my sisters, each contributing 200,000 to buy him a house. In my past life, I felt sorry for my sisters and tried to dissuade them several times, but I never expected that my sisters had already been brainwashed by our parents, and even tried to persuade me to think more about our younger brother. Since that's the case, I could only choose to respect their fate. After the house was officially reinforced, there was still 1 year left before the apocalypse. During this period, I gradually stockpiled quite a few supplies. Whenever my consciousness enters the space and sees the dazzling array of fully stocked supplies inside, I always feel particularly at ease, since the space can preserve freshness. I've stocked up on plenty of hot dishes to improve my quality of life. Apart from clothing and food, I also bought 100,000 flashlights, each paired with batteries by the seller. Once the power supply disappears, we can rely on flashlights for lighting. In addition to flashlights, I also bought 200,000 candles, 100,000 lighters, 100,000 000 boxes of matches, 100,000 silent generators, and hand-cranked generators. To avoid situations where my daughter or I might fall ill and be unable to receive timely treatment, leaving us with no choice but to endure it, I also sought help from acquaintances and managed to obtain 10,000 boxes of various medications. I prepared 20,000 units of gauze, cotton balls, cotton swabs, and various ointments. I've also prepared 10,000 units of various models of prosthetics, wheelchairs, and crutches. By the time everything was ready, there were only 2 months left before the apocalypse. When my daughter learned about the impending apocalypse, she didn't cry or make a fuss, instead becoming more sensible. At this moment, the global climate began to become erratic. First, temperatures in the southern hemisphere collectively plummeted to -20 degrees, then quickly soared to above 40 degrees. Within just a few days, temperatures were changing every hour. Then, global volcanic eruptions occurred, driving all animals to flee in a single direction. Even predators faced with herbivores chose not to hunt. This wonder has been extensively covered by numerous television stations. I unwrapped an ice cream and put it in my mouth, easing some of the summer heat. I opened my phone and took a quick glance at the surveillance feed. Without me and my daughter as their usual punching bags, my in-laws found it quite unsettling. Marigold, accustomed to being spoiled and willful, didn't hesitate to refuse when her mother-in-law asked her to invest money. She even scolded her in-laws for being shameless and scheming against their only daughter. This was completely different from what her in-laws had envisioned, but with the Kian group in turmoil, they had no choice but to endure. Even the jewelry treasured by Grandma was given to Evangeline. Grandma initially refused, but Marigold accused her of favoritism, saying Evangeline was also her biological granddaughter. Besides, giving it to Evangeline was better than leaving it to Fiora. Grandma finally agreed and even chimed in, saying Evangeline was her only granddaughter. I'd like to see who they'd choose to send out without Fiora as the sacrificial lamb. When zombies blocked the door, who will they choose to send out? The day before the apocalypse arrived, my daughter and I were snuggled under the blankets watching a movie. At the moment the sun set, I even thought to myself, if I could be reborn, would the apocalypse also disappear? But the next day, when I turned on the TV, every channel was broadcasting the same news on loop. Without exception, all these news reports were repeating the same story. City B has been hit by an unknown virus infection. Infected individuals attack indiscriminately. Citizens are advised to stay home and follow instructions. The internet is flooded with various on-site videos. I took one look and immediately lost my appetite. I took out 2 dishes and a soup from my space storage, and after having a satisfying meal with my daughter, she went back to her bedroom for a nap. I opened my phone and continued watching the surveillance footage. The in-laws were completely unaware that the apocalypse had arrived, still acting high and mighty as they demanded the property management deliver bird's nest soup. After receiving a refusal, the mother-in-law was furious and kept complaining incessantly. The father-in-law sighed helplessly nearby, having made plans with old friends to go fishing but now unable to leave the house. They didn't understand frugality, continuing to live their extravagant lifestyle. In just 2 days, the already scarce food in the refrigerator was nearly depleted. The mother-in-law initially wanted to call the servants and have them go out to search for food, but the servants, sensing the situation was dire, had all fled. In their desperation, the in-laws turned their attention to Marigold. There were still 2 boxes of milk and a box of apples in her room. Her mother-in-law came to her, hoping she could spare some food to help her and her father-in-law survive a little longer. Upon hearing this, Marigold sneered coldly and said, "Why should I? Evangeline and I don't even have enough to eat ourselves. Besides, Evangeline is your own granddaughter. You can't just stand by and watch her starve." Watching my mother-in-law frown with anger, I felt nothing but satisfaction in my heart. Just as she had treated Fiora before, now Marigold was giving her exactly the same treatment. In the previous life after the apocalypse began, the news announced that rescue teams would deliver supplies within 3 days at most, yet my in-laws refused to give even a sip of milk to my daughter, who was so hungry she had to fill her stomach with tap water. Now it's time for the in-laws to experience the taste of hunger. I turned off the surveillance and sent a message to the neighborhood group. the property management said the rescue team had arrived and asked each household to send a representative to the third-floor hallway to collect supplies. Instantly, the entire group chat erupted with excitement. To avoid arousing suspicion, I went along as well. Before leaving, I repeatedly instructed my daughter, "Mommy needs to go to the third floor now. Stay home and don't open the door for strangers, understand?" My daughter nodded in agreement. When I reached the third floor, I glanced at the queue of over a dozen people and quietly found a corner to wait in. Just as it was about to be my turn, the man in front of me suddenly pointed at the staff distributing supplies and flew into a rage. "I pay hundreds in property fees every year, and this is all you give me now? Did you pocket all the money yourselves?" Hearing his words, the people who hadn't left yet also started chiming in agreement. The elderly lady from the second floor also joined the fray. "Won't you give me a few cans of formula? My grandson is waiting to eat." Hearing this, I tried hard to suppress the smile at the corners of my mouth. They are neither relatives nor friends of mine, so I won't tell them. Supplies can only be distributed for 2 months, because 2 months later, the first wave of zombie horde will come. By that time, what was once a neighborhood with only a few hundred wandering zombies would surge to tens of thousands. In the worst-hit areas, the exterior of buildings would be completely covered by zombies, blocking out the sky. Even at noon in August, it would still be as dark as night. The zombie horde would persist for a full 7 days before finally retreating. In the previous life, fewer than 10 million people entered the base alive. 3. The staff patiently persuaded for dozens of minutes before finally calming the man and the elderly woman. I received 10 packs of instant noodles, 2 1-liter bottles of mineral water, and 5 packs of compressed biscuits. These supplies were meant to last for 1 week. As I carried the box from the third floor to the second, I ran into the mom from the fourth floor. She greeted me warmly and asked, "Do you have any extra baby formula at home? I can trade you some oranges for it." No. To be honest, if supplies hadn't arrived in time, I would have starved to death. In these apocalyptic times, people's intentions are hard to gauge. Even seemingly harmless children require extra caution. Seeing that I didn't agree, the mother's face showed disappointment. "It's not that I don't want to help, but I can't guarantee she actually has oranges. Even less can I guarantee whether she'll keep her mouth shut if I make the exchange." Back at home, my daughter rushed into my arms. Her face was deathly pale, tears welling up in her eyes. "Mom, you're finally back. There was a very strange person outside the bedroom window just now. Woo-woo, I'm so scared." "Don't be afraid, it's all right," I comforted softly. After my daughter calmed down, I had her stay in the living room while I went alone to her bedroom. The sun was about to set, and the afterglow of the sunset shone on the window. I suddenly widened my eyes and held my breath. Outside the window, it was covered in blood. A zombie was crawling around nimbly with its hands and feet. What's even more terrifying is that despite lacking a head, she could still accurately locate the window. Fortunately, I reinforced the window, otherwise the zombie would have gotten in. The zombie kept slamming its body against the window, trying to climb inside. Seeing no success, it turned around and crawled toward the balcony downstairs. Just as I was slightly relieved and about to turn around to get tools to reinforce the window, thud, 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 the dull knocking sound began. I turned my head and was shocked to find the headless zombie pressed against the window, as if staring right at me. For a moment, I felt my heart race and a chill run down my spine. To prevent my daughter from being scared, I decided to let her sleep with me. Before bed, I ate some cookies and opened my phone to check the surveillance footage. The footage showed Marigold holding a stool, repeatedly hitting her mother-in-law with it. Her hair was disheveled, her eyes bloodshot, clearly in a state of distress. While smashing things, she cried out in agitation, "It's all your fault. If it weren't for you, how could Evangeline have had an accident?" The mother-in-law was smashed into a bloody pulp, her once meticulously maintained face now resembling soft tofu. I pulled up the surveillance footage from the previous few days again and began reviewing it. The father-in-law, starving beyond endurance, decided to threaten Marigold into giving him some food. He conspired with his mother-in-law to lure Evangeline near the entrance, then opened the door and pushed her out. The father-in-law intended to have Marigold hand over the food, after which he and his wife would pull Evangeline back inside. But they forgot it was the apocalypse. A wandering zombie bit Evangeline's arm and dragged her away. The in-laws valued their lives dearly and quickly shut the door. Marigold watched helplessly as her daughter was in danger right before her eyes. She wanted to rush out to save her, but was stopped by her in-laws working together. In a fit of rage, she took advantage of the falling night and killed her father-in-law with an axe. The mother-in-law knelt and begged for mercy, but this only made Marigold angrier, as the axe kept falling. The mother-in-law completely lost her breath. Marigold threw away the axe and opened the gate. Soon, more than a dozen zombies rushed towards her, painting the scene crimson. I turned off my phone and went back to the bedroom. 2 days later, the internet completely disappeared. In the property management group chat, the latest message was from the property manager advising everyone to conserve food and water as much as possible, in case rescue supplies couldn't arrive on time. Fortunately, I had downloaded plenty of TV shows, movies, and novels, which were enough to pass the time. I also downloaded all kinds of textbooks and courses, so my daughter could continue her studies, but for now, she won't need to use it, at least not until entering the base and settling down. I can't guarantee we'll survive the zombie horde with my daughter. The only solution is to temporarily leave the city with her. We can return once the zombie horde retreats. I've bought 500 top-tier RVs, ready to leave anytime by retrieving them from the space. Another week passed, and the supplies arrived on time as usual, but this time, there were only compressed biscuits and mineral water, not even instant noodles. After collecting the supplies, I ran into the mom from the 4th floor again. She glared at me with hatred and rushed forward to grab my neck. I dodged, but she wouldn't let it go, turning to the tall man behind her and saying, "Honey, she has food at home, I've seen it. She often buys imported snacks for her daughter. She's so rich, she must have food." Hearing this, the man's face twisted with greed as he snarled at me, "Hand over the food, and I might spare you and your daughter." As he spoke, he advanced step by step, a kitchen knife clutched in his hand. Even as the cleaver was about to strike my face, I remained standing there. The next second, the man collapsed, and behind him stood the headless zombie. The woman screamed and ran upstairs, but before she could step onto the stairs, 2 zombies grabbed her ankles. In this building, there are 3 zombies constantly wandering around, never leaving. Now, I've managed to lure them all together. While they're still gnawing on this couple, I open the space and choose to contain the zombies. Fortunately, my gamble paid off. Once the zombies entered the space, they completely lost their lives. I threw all the zombies out of the space, then returned home. Half a month before the zombie outbreak, I left the neighborhood with my daughter. Using my space and bow, I eliminated the zombies blocking the door, started the RV, and drove away. There were very few surviving residents left in the neighborhood. They either starved to death at home or were killed by zombies while searching for food outside. The once bustling commercial street had become lifeless, with only various grotesque zombies wandering aimlessly, without hesitation. I stepped on the gas and continued driving into the distance. Occasionally, survivors would spot me and run after the RV, shouting for me to stop. I paid no attention and instead accelerated. Through the back window, the daughter watched the despairing faces of the people, her heart aching with compassion. She said, "Mom, can we give them a piece of bread? They look so pitiful." I shook my head and said earnestly, "If you give them a piece of bread, they might very well want more." Hearing my words, the daughter nodded, seeming to understand yet not fully grasping it. I turned my head and glanced at my despondent daughter, but had no intention of comforting her. She had been sheltered too well by me. Over a month into the apocalypse, she had never worried about survival, remaining kind and naive. There's nothing wrong with that, but I couldn't feel at ease. As the car drove onto the highway, I remained expressionless, crushing the layers upon layers of corpses beneath. The daughter lay in bed, looking listless, lost in thought. After driving non-stop for a full day and night, I couldn't hold on any longer and had to pull over to rest. Before closing my eyes, I told my daughter to watch the window and wake me if anyone approached. My daughter nodded solemnly, her gaze lingering on the dark circles under my eyes with a hint of guilt. I didn't dare sleep much, only dozed for a few dozen minutes before opening my eyes again, after driving non-stop for another day. My daughter and I finally reached our new destination. Holding my daughter's hand, I walked toward the dilapidated village. This place was sparsely populated. Just going out would take 7 or 8 hours. The last time I left was the year I got into university. Since then, I've never come back. Now, to keep my daughter alive, I've returned here. Upon entering the village, a strong smell of blood hit me. I found a still habitable house, cleaned and disinfected it. Then took out a bed from my storage space. My daughter watched silently when suddenly, the door was banged loudly. A hoarse elderly voice followed. "Is anyone there? Could you spare me a bowl of porridge? I'm starving to death." My daughter didn't respond, instead covering her ears with her hands. Story 2. The end times are approaching. My neighbor has been stockpiling water and food, turning his villa into a steel fortress. As for me, I've been hoarding cat food, kitty litter, and cosmetics. The wealthy second-generation son from next door was frantically ringing my doorbell, cradling my cat and yawning. I went downstairs, opened the door, and was met by a panicked man. "Wanda." He glanced at me and froze. That's when I remembered I'd come down in just my tank top nightie. I recognized him. He's the rich kid who lives in the big villa next to mine. "What's up?" I asked. He struggled to find his words for a moment before blurting out, "Wanda, you won't believe this, but I've been reborn. In a month, there will be a zombie virus outbreak in Country Z, and the whole nation will fall. Wanda, you need to start preparing and stockpile supplies." I looked up at him seriously. Honestly, the idea of a zombie attack didn't surprise me much. But his claim of being reborn was quite intriguing. I smiled. "I believe you. What's your name, by the way?" His face turned red as he stuttered. "I'm Caleb, 21 years old, a junior at University A, and I live next door." Humans sure blush easily. I smiled again and asked, "So, what's your plan?" He gathered his courage and said, "When the zombies come, it'll be dangerous in Country Z. I plan to spend money to turn our house into a battle fortress, since we're neighbors. I was thinking of building an underground tunnel to your house, so if the zombies attack, you can escape to mine. Spend money to turn his place into a fortress and then tunnel to mine." Even though I'm not human, I gave him a second look. This young man's hormones are certainly raging. I calmly smiled and asked, "Why do you think the zombies will attack my house?" Caleb, looking resolute, said, "In my previous life, after the zombies breached our complex, they attacked your house, Wanda. I wasn't able to save you last time and I've always regretted that. This time, I must save you." I smiled gently. "All right then, young master, once you've fortified your place, go ahead and dig that tunnel to my house." His eyes lit up as he nodded eagerly. "Okay, Wanda, thank you for trusting me." Zombies are filthy, ugly, lowly creatures. We, the zombie kings, look down upon and are disgusted by such beings. We prefer gnawing on fresh beef, sleeping in clean sheets, basking in the warm sun, and using QR codes everywhere to book rides. We don't like dealing with lowly zombies. I don't really believe Caleb's prediction about the zombie disaster being the work of a zombie king. I'm more inclined to believe it's a human-made mess, but that's none of my business. However, Caleb's mention of stockpiling did remind me, after the zombie virus outbreak, society will collapse, and having enjoyed this comfortable life, I definitely need to stock up too. Fortunately, there's still a month left. And shopping isn't a problem at all. Lazily lying on my genuine leather red sofa, I thought, humans really know how to enjoy life. Just shopping online every day is enough to make me happy, and receiving the goods lets me enjoy happiness a second time. Swiping through my phone, I first ordered a large supply of cat litter, cat food, and freeze-dried cat treats. After ordering several carts worth of cat supplies, I casually bought a bunch of toilet paper, toothbrushes, towels, and shampoo. I do love pretty clothes. If I can't maintain my beauty during a zombie apocalypse, that would be terrible. So, I bought piles of clothes and cosmetics. My cat ran over to my feet, licking my freshly polished toenails. I looked down and realized, yes, I need to stock up on some nail polish too. I bought several large fridges and loads of beef to freeze, along with 1,000 bottles of my favorite red wine to store in the cellar. My phone was a bit sluggish, and suddenly it occurred to me that it might break down if zombies attacked, so I ordered 100 new phones and several laptops. While browsing, I stumbled upon a page selling seeds, so I ordered tons of seeds for fruits, vegetables, and flowers, to prevent my big orange cat from getting sick. I ordered a bulk supply of various medicines for both humans and animals online. After placing these orders, I hired professionals to install solar and wind power systems in my home. As I opened the door to greet the technicians setting up the mini power station, I glanced over at the neighboring villa. Caleb's place was already encircled by a steel wall and he was installing an electric fence. The magnitude of his project was truly blinding. Unperturbed, I ordered several fuel generators, manual generators, and other types of generators, as well as gasoline. After walking around my 3,000 square meter villa, I stroked my big orange cat and said, "Hey, Big Orange. How about I turn half of this place into an independent ecosystem? That way, even if the external water and food supplies are contaminated, you'll still have cat grass to eat, water to drink, and pampas grass to play with. How does that sound?" Big Orange meowed affectionately in my arms. Acting immediately, I contracted a professional team specialized in creating ecosystems. My requirement was to build a fully enclosed, independent ecosystem across 500 square meters. Relying neither on external water sources nor outside air, I offered a generous sum, demanding completion within half a month, or they would face a hefty penalty for any delay. The ecological team agreed without hesitation and began working tirelessly, day and night. 2 days later, as supplies gradually arrived, Caleb from next door came over and, seeing the heaps of supplies at my house, said, "Wanda, you really should consider building a wall. Those zombies are fierce and can climb in to bite people." I nodded in agreement. Caleb continued, "And you can't skimp on storing water. When the air and water are polluted, and you can't drink the water outside, you should at least stockpile enough water to fill 2 rooms. I nodded again. Satisfied, Caleb went back to supervise his own house, which was being filled with truckloads of water and bags of rice. The windows were all sealed, with countless layers of air filters placed wherever air could pass through. His house, wrapped in copper sheets, looked nearly as fortified as a tank. It looked truly safe. I turned my gaze back to the truckload of trees that had just arrived, greeting the delivery with a smile. "Help me plant these trees on the outer perimeter of the yard, some in the middle, and some inside." The driver got out and smiled, saying, "Boss, you're really greening up the yard, with at least 3 acres here. Planting all these will disrupt a lot of the existing setup." As I helped the drivers move the trees, I smiled and said, "Do you know what's most important? Ecology, that's what's most important." From the outside in, I planted 3 rows of trees with strong filtration capabilities, with the innermost circle including the fruit trees I liked to eat. I also had the workers create a wetland area, planting various plants known for their air and soil purification properties. I even set up several sheds to raise poultry and rabbits. Raising chickens, ducks, and rabbits outside my house was probably the most ill-considered decision I've made, not because they were problematic, but because their constant clucking and quacking were incredibly annoying, hardly fitting for a refined and beautiful woman like myself. But my big orange cat was thrilled, often running over to play with the chickens in their pen. "Oh well, let them make a fuss, I don't really care." 2 weeks later, the power station was ready, the trees were planted, and the ecosystem in the room was almost set up. I suddenly felt that the air was much fresher, life felt safer too. Caleb came over to my place again, and I was cooking steaks when he arrived. He expressed his disapproval that my house didn't have a steel fence or an electric grid. I just let his comments go in one ear and out the other, but in the end, I kindly reminded this young man, brimming with testosterone, "Mr. Lou, I think you might want to stock up on some beef. What are you thinking about eating at a time like this?" I looked at the steak in the pan and said calmly, "Compared to human flesh, zombies prefer steak. Sometimes, a piece of steak might just save your life." After saying that, I placed the cooked steak on a plate. Caleb asked me, "How do you know that?" I glanced at him, smiled, and said, "It's written in a book." He clearly didn't believe it. I didn't care whether he believed it or not, especially since I had bought up all the steaks within 10 miles. I took my cat out for a drive, and when I returned, I could smell something different in the house. It was only after seeing a big hole in the living room that I realized Caleb had indeed dug a tunnel to my place. I knew this rich kid was thinking about champagne, fine wines, and beautiful women. My cat meowed loudly in my arms. After putting it down, it dashed straight into the ecological area. I followed and saw a man and a woman there. The man was Caleb, and the woman seemed to be his sister, Vivian. At that moment, Vivian was washing her hands in the small river of my ecological zone using some chemical substances. Brother, this place is really nice. With this ecosystem, we don't have to worry about the pollution outside. As I watched the hand soap flowing into my ecosystem, I got very angry. Even the pupils in my colored contacts stood upright. Big Orange kept meowing incessantly. Caleb turned around with a smile and said, "Wanda, you've made this place really nice. Get out," I said, staring at the small river as if I was staring at the soap. "What's wrong, Wanda?" Caleb approached and said, "Now that our homes are connected, you can come to us if you're in danger. And we can come here for fresh fruits and vegetables if we need them. Isn't that great?" I restrained my urge to throw them out and said politely again, "Get out, fine, we'll leave." "Who cares?" Vivian exclaimed angrily. "What kind of person are you, acting all high and mighty as if nobody else has money?" "Brother, let's go back and make our own ecosystem," Caleb hurriedly said. "Vivian, it was rude of us to come uninvited." I coldly waited for them to leave, then took a spoon and a bucket, removed my shoes and socks, and went down to the river to scoop out as much of the pollutants as I could. Then, I went out, found several large rocks, and rolled them inside like a dung beetle, blocking the tunnel Caleb had made. Did I ever say I liked humans? If I did, I apologize. Some humans, I really don't like. Caleb came to apologize a few times, but I didn't meet him. Eventually, he stopped coming so often, and I enjoyed the peace. The rooms in my house are increasingly stocked with supplies, filling up several rooms. I sit in front of the sofa playing with my Switch, pressing buttons here and there, thoroughly enjoying myself, glancing at the calendar. It seems today is the day Caleb predicted the zombie outbreak would occur. Turning on the TV, sure enough, it's already broadcasting violent news. Incidents of people biting each other have occurred on the main streets of City A, causing public panic. Armed forces have intervened to stop the violence. Is this rabies? The news shows scenes of people panicking, running away, hoarding, and fighting over food. I turn off the TV and stand up to look at the rain outside. The foul-smelling rain even has a hint of blood in it, which I dislike. Caleb knocks on my door in a hurry. Opening the door, he eagerly asks if I've seen the news and excitedly says, "Wanda, did you see? I really am reborn." "I saw it," I nod. Humanity seems truly insane at this moment. He doesn't know that to me. A normal human is already a tasty piece of meat, and a reborn one like him is a delicacy worth many times more. He doesn't know that I am actually a zombie king. This world has faced more than one zombie crisis, and I was born during the first one, making me the progenitor, the royalty of zombie royalty. Caleb says, "Don't be afraid, just lock your doors and windows and hide at home. If it really gets dangerous, I'll figure out a way to save you." I nod and agree. Soon, the zombie tide arrives. The villa complex near my home gets infected, turning the residents into walking corpses. Caleb's fortified home next door holds up, preventing the zombies from getting in. I guess he and his sister are still managing to have a good time. I'm different, as Sun Ryukong said. It's safe inside the circle, so I drew one around my large yard. The disgusting little zombies don't dare to come in. Daju is a cat that has been with me for a few years. It's smart enough to know not to go outside when there's trouble. I opened some cat food and freeze-dried snacks for Daju, squatting down to listen to it make noises like a pig as it eats. The rain finally stops. The red rain contaminates the water and air. I stand by the window, watching the leaves in the yard sway. On TV, the news is urging everyone to stay indoors and not go out. I look at the fortress next door and ponder a question. How long can stagnant water be stored? Bottled water only has a shelf life of 1 to 3 months. What will they do after 1 to 3 months? Oh well, it's really none of my business. I hear Daju scratching at the door. Reluctantly, I open it for him, and he dashes out, then meows at the door, holding a black umbrella. I go outside and find my cat squatting beside something. It's a dying dog. I clear away the mud and see a weak border collie. I say to Daju, "We already have one cat in the house, and that's enough fur. I don't want another dog." Meow. I don't like bringing things home, especially dogs. Meow. Alright, Daju is family, and I respect its wishes. I bring the dog to the front of the house, rinse off the mud with a hose, then give it a bath with shampoo and feed it some of the pet medicine I had stockpiled for Daju. Daju looks excitedly at the dog lying on the ground, occasionally nudged it with the tip of its nose. The dog whimpered a few times. I couldn't understand dog language, but I felt it was expressing gratitude. Troublesome, a cat and a dog. I didn't want to handle so many chores. I felt like I needed a poop scooper officer. 3 months had passed and the streets were now teeming with wandering zombies. I had no idea when this zombie crisis would end, or if it would ever end at all. I leaned on the couch, petting the cat, while the dog lay obediently at my feet. I have good hearing and could hear the siblings next door talking. Brother, the water tastes odd. I found bugs in this bucket. I heard Vivian pouring out the water. I stopped petting the cat. Water with bugs is still better than the water outside, isn't it, Vivian? Why did you pour out the water? It could be treated and still be drinkable. Brother, the rice has bugs too, and the instant noodles we bought are about to expire in a few days. Why did you buy products that are so close to their expiration date? I wasn't paying attention. Compressed biscuits only have a 12-month shelf life. What will we do after 12 months? We've been eating cured meat for a long time. Brother, I haven't had vegetables or fresh meat in ages. I could get septicemia. That's why I say, foolish, ecology is most important. Brother, it was that rich girl next door again. We're almost out of salt. Why didn't we stock up on salt? What will we do when it runs out? As she spoke, Vivian started to cry. We don't have sanitary pads, no cola, no milk tea. I can't take this anymore. I'm about to go crazy. We can't go out. Caleb pulled her back. Absolutely not. After a struggle, Vivian calmed down and said to Caleb, Brother, our neighbor next door, she seems to be growing vegetables indoors. She has supplies, lots of them. I gripped tightly, startling the big orange cat who jumped up. Well. The tasty morsels next door have set their sights on my resources. 10. Big Orange, Smarty Pants. Get up. Smarty Pants is the name I gave to the border collie, and it really likes the name. The healthy Smarty Pants was eager to show off. When I called it, it pranced around with the unique smile of a border collie and then sat down in front of me. Big Orange looked proud, almost too lazy to bother with me. I scooped up Big Orange and held him in my arms. It was your decision to let me save it. So if it eats your cat food and drinks your water, you can't be mad at me. Meow. Big Orange nuzzled me, dressed in a striking red dress. I walked out with my cat and my dog. On the main road, the filthy zombies, as if sensing something terrifying, kept their distance from me. Smarty Pants, who hadn't been out in months, was particularly excited, immediately grabbing something dirty off the ground. I frowned and said directly, either spit it out or get lost. Smarty Pants immediately spit out what was in its mouth. Before long, I finally found a group of people out searching for food. 3 months into the zombie crisis, the public had started to fend for themselves. Several small groups have been formed, and the one in front of me is one of them. This group consists of 12 people who have captured a young man in his 20s, though I'm not sure what for, but that's none of my business. I left a note that had Caleb's address on it and added the words, has supplies. Lucky took the note over, and I knew they saw it. After returning home, I started listening to the noises outside. This group was really impressive. With just a piece of fresh meat and a few bundles of fresh vegetables, they successfully entered the steel fortress next door. Hearing that Caleb was subdued, I closed my eyes and gently shook my head as I sat on the premium sofa. Boss, they really have a lot of supplies. A lot of clean water, rice, instant noodles, compressed biscuits. Boss, Caleb was terrified. I'll give it to you. We can share half of our supplies with you. Please spare us. Spare you? We can only spare one person. Young man, you choose who. Vivian screamed. No, don't. I know of others who have supplies. I'll tell you. Can you spare me if I do? My hand gently tapping on the sofa. I heard them respond. Okay. As long as you tell us where the supplies are. We will spare your lives, Vivian yelled. Next door, Wanda next door. She has supplies, clean, all clean and uncontaminated. I stopped tapping the sofa. I then heard a few whispers around their leader, and it seemed like the squad leader pulled out a gun. Girl, that big fool next door only hoards trees and cat litter and cat food. You dare to deceive me. A loud bang followed. I poked my own ear, that of the big fool. After Vivian was executed, they pushed Caleb out of the fortress. Caleb quickly drew the attention of the zombies outside and eventually became one of them. As for this group, they really liked the fortress and settled in, taking it over, with new neighbors next door. I wondered if Caleb might be reborn again. If he were reborn, would he build another steel fortress? Would he make his defenses more discreet to avoid becoming a target again? I thought about it and then shook my head. The food and water he stored would expire. His crisis was bound to happen sooner or later. I heard some noise again. It seemed like the tied-up young man next door was sick, but there was no medicine. That's none of my business. I gave Lucky some water to brush his teeth and take a bath. At night, there was a commotion next door, and by the sounds of it, the tied-up young man had escaped. I heard the new neighbors chasing after him, then went outside and heard the zombie noises, followed by a strong smell of blood. Just after securing the fortress, this group became food for the zombies. Such a waste. Just as I was about to turn back to my room, I smelled the only surviving tied-up young man entering the circle I had drawn. This person was very cautious. Once inside the circle, he didn't venture further. He actually knows this place is safe. I was surprised. Meow, woof. Big Smarty was particularly excited, tugging at the hem of my skirt. Woof 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 woof. All right, I'll go out and have a look. Taking a cat and a dog with me, I headed out again. As I approached the young boy, he suddenly sprang up. I parted the leaves, and my bright red dress must have been quite startling in the dark night. Who are you? The boy asked cautiously. I stared at the boy in front of me. Indeed, he was the one who had been tied up earlier. Reflecting on the boy's actions, he must have known this place was safe, leading those dozen people into a swarm of zombies after his escape, and then he came to me. Should I commend you for your cleverness? I retorted. The boy eyed me warily until my dog suddenly rushed over excitedly and pounced on him. Wow, the boy exclaimed with joy. My dog was happily licking him. I was not pleased and said, his name is Big Smarty. He's my dog. The boy had a name, Byron. I would never admit that Big Smarty was Byron's dog. I also didn't want to accept that Big Smarty, whom I had raised for 3 months, would go with Byron. So, in the end, I compromised and agreed to let Byron into my villa to become the official scooper. 14. Byron was a sharp and clever 20-year-old young man. He took on the responsibility of cleaning up, humorously calling it paying the rent. The young, clean boy stood before me and asked seriously, Miss, do we have any salt? I grew to appreciate him more because he addressed me politely as, Miss. I replied, I don't think so. He continued, then what shall we eat? I opened a large refrigerator, pointed to the full shelves, and proudly said, we can have steak. The seasoning in the steak package contains salt. He pondered for a moment before asking, do we have any vegetables? I nodded and led him into my eco-zone. The moment he saw the eco-zone, his eyes filled with surprise, lasting until I pointed to the catnip growing all over the ground and told him, you can eat this. At that moment, I saw a trace of cracks in his expression. I turned, puzzled, looking at the catnip. Catnip, humans should be able to eat it too. 15. After Byron had finished all the housework in the big house, he changed his clothes and went out. I'm not a nosy landlord, so I didn't bother to check on what he was doing, until he came back in the evening, his face flushed with excitement. I looked closer and saw sprouted potatoes and sweet potatoes. Sprouted ones can't be eaten, I said. Byron's clear eyes curved slightly. Miss, these aren't for eating. We can plant them. Looking at the big boy, I widened my eyes slightly. Well, he even knows how to farm. Big Orange sat perched up high, overseeing us, while Big Smarty wagged his tail excitedly. I watched as Byron pulled out a small knife, carefully cutting the potatoes and sweet potatoes and laying them out to dry. Even after Byron left, I remained squatting there, watching the potatoes and sweet potatoes. The next day, Byron got up early. Big Orange was the first to jump in front of Byron. Big Smarty was a bit slow because he was too engrossed in his breakfast, and I, lazily leaning on the door frame, yawned and watched him with tears in my eyes. He picked up the potatoes and sweet potatoes that had been dried for a day and planted them in the ecological zone. The 3 of us, a man, a cat, and a dog, gathered around the sprouting potatoes and sweet potatoes. I glanced at the large orange cat and asked, looking forward to it, The large orange cat meowed in response. The large orange cat and the smart dog instinctively chose to relieve themselves near the potatoes and sweet potatoes. With the fertilizer, the potatoes and sweet potatoes grew rapidly. Byron was heading out again, and this time I asked him, "Where are you off to today?" He looked at me with a smile. "Miss, we need more salt." I nodded, handed him the sliced beef, and said, "Zombies like beef." He looked at me, puzzled. I pretended to be generous and glanced at my fine steak with a bit of pain. "The scent of the beef can distract them, use it sparingly." Byron looked at me, smiled, and nodded. He left clean and returned dusty, bringing back a box of salt. I lazily smiled, seeing him fumble for something small on the side, and curiously looked over as he said with a smile, "Miss, this music box is for you." I looked at him in surprise. Then at the music box. I had lived many years, but I recognized this little thing. I wound the spring, and as it danced, crisp music played. My heart strangely stirred. Human television didn't have many programs left, but interestingly, one channel's news was still broadcast on time every day. So in our dull lives, there was still this little bit of anticipation, turning on the TV on time, watching the news on time. Today's news was somewhat different. The white-haired, disheartened old man on the TV, the city's mayor, said somberly to the survivors in front of the TV, "I sadly inform you that our city has been completely overrun. Now, we have no other options. We must abandon our city. Please, survivors, head to the cathedral in the west of the city. The municipal committee has dispatched special police from D City to escort everyone to the safety zone." I remarked, "In this situation, there are still humans at work." Byron said, "Miss, humans are actually very strong." 2 years passed, and I had nearly finished all of my stockpiled steaks. The human world had collapsed, and there was no place left to buy beef. After a moment of lamentation, I noticed panic for the first time in Byron's eyes. I went over to comfort him. "Don't worry, there are still chickens and ducks in the ecological zone, enough for you to get your nutrients." He quickly regained his composure, fell silent for a while, then turned to grab his gear and said to me, "Miss, I'm going out for a bit." He often went out, so I didn't think much of it and nodded. By midnight, Byron still hadn't returned, and I began to realize that this time might be different. Sitting on the sofa, I stroked the increasingly plump large orange cat, my brow furrowed with unease. "Big Orange, our caretaker is missing." The large orange cat meowed. I said, "I'd better go find him." With Big Smart sniffing, Byron sent ahead and Big Orange perched on my shoulder. I walked in my burgundy high heels across the nearly deserted land. There were disgusting little zombies everywhere. They didn't dare to approach me. Suddenly, Lucky caught a scent and let out an anxious bark at me. I quickened my pace to catch up with Lucky. When we rescued Byron, he had been shot. I had some medical knowledge, managed to extract the bullet, administered antibiotics, and bandaged him up. It took another day and night before Byron finally woke up. Upon awakening, his initial relief quickly turned to panic as he examined himself from head to toe. I told him, "You've been with me for a while now. The zombies won't hurt you. Your injuries were inflicted by humans." "I know, Byron suddenly said, his voice tense. I felt like I suddenly understood what he meant. There was an unspoken understanding between us that hadn't been addressed, but I guessed that by now, Byron had figured out who I was. He might have thought that I had turned him into a zombie using the virus. That thought made me uncomfortable. I stood up, my voice growing colder. "Don't overthink it. I saved you using scientific methods." Byron paused. "Miss, that's not what I meant. I wasn't interested in hearing human explanations." Byron got up and put the steak he brought into the fridge. For the first time, I felt no desire to eat the steak. I lazily played with my Switch in the living room as if the past events had never happened. After Byron cleaned up, he placed a cooked steak in front of me. "Miss," I put down the Switch, looking up at him, still wrapped in bandages. He was about to speak when suddenly, with a loud bang, all the lights in the house went out. I hadn't expected my home's electrical equipment to be so poor. In the darkness, Byron and I looked at each other, and he seemed very helpless. "Miss, I'll go fix it." I sat on the couch watching Byron run in and out until he finally connected the wind-powered generator, and the house lit up again. Wiping his sweat, he told me, "Miss, we're out of fuel." I nodded. Byron said, "I'll go find some." I nodded again. I sensed Byron wanted to say more, but perhaps because he was repeatedly interrupted, he ultimately didn't say it. 3 more years passed. Humanity's situation finally began to improve in these 5 years. The toxicity of the zombie virus decreased significantly. By now, it had almost completely disappeared. Many humans died in this disaster, but some survived by banding together in safe zones. I observed the land where the soil itself broke down the zombie toxins into fertilizer. The leaves absorbed the toxins from the air, converting them into oxygen. The vegetation and soil filtered everything, restoring the earth to its healthiest state. Byron had grown up, now 25 years old. The world was safe. Looking at the lush vegetation in the yard, I said to Byron, "Byron, it's time for you to leave." His eyes suddenly widened. I had never seen so much emotion revealed in someone's eyes. In the end, Byron gave me a dry smile. "Miss, thank you for taking care of me these past 5 years." I handed him Lucky's leash, watching as he and Lucky seemed reluctant to leave. Standing there for a moment, he eventually disappeared from my sight. Even now, the words he wanted to say that day were never spoken. It's all in the past now. I have lived a long life, and these are just scenes from the journey of my life. Extra story. Byron, did you get the sample? I took out the serum and handed it to the scientists hidden in City B. Not long ago, I successfully entered that large courtyard and saw the most beautiful girl. That dazzling red was the most beautiful glow, unforgettable for a lifetime, thanks to Theo's blessing. I managed to stay in this courtyard. This courtyard is not of the same world as the outside. Inside the courtyard is a warm home, while outside is a cold hell. From the beginning, I knew Wanda was a zombie queen, but surprisingly, Wanda's home was warmer, cleaner, and more tasteful than I imagined. She was different from the Walking Dead outside, different from what we had thought before. She was curious and reverent towards life. She treated her cat as if it were a family member. She was interesting. She could wear rare designer clothes and squat in the ecosystem to watch potatoes sprout. She could eat her favorite steak day after day, as if she would never tire of it. Every time I went out, I would bring back various zombie serums to the base, but I never brought hers. Zombies are created by the zombie queen. We need the queen's serum to overcome this disaster. I coolly responded to them, "If you're capable, go get it yourself, Byron." We sacrificed an entire squad to gain her trust and place you by her side. Now only you can get close to her. Don't be foolish. I turned away coldly. How could I let her know that even our first meeting was a calculation by humans? Finally, my passive resistance caused the base to lose patience, and they planned to send a squad back with me to Wanda's home. I was very anxious. Even more anxious because the steaks at home were running out. And I couldn't see her happy expression while eating steak anymore. I remembered there was a cattle pen in the safe zone of City D, and our base had applied for a batch of fresh steaks. I thought, I needed to get my hands on those steaks. I returned to the base and packed all the steaks I could into my backpack. Just as I finished, the squad arranged by the base to intercept Wanda met up with me, sitting in the car on the way back, listening to their plans against Wanda. I involuntarily recalled Wanda applying lipstick and nail polish, elegantly walking in the ecosystem. My feelings were indescribably complex, a mix of pain and warmth. One of the squad members said, "You know, this zombie queen is really beautiful, Byron. Just tell us, have you fallen for that zombie queen? Seeing how beautiful she is, it's no wonder you can't resist her. Once we get the serum, let's take turns enjoying it." Ha ha ha. The harsh laughter echoed in my ears. In that moment, I almost lost my sanity. When I came to my senses, they had turned into zombies, and I had several holes in my body. Blood flowed more and more. My body grew colder, and I collapsed to the ground. My head ached. I clenched my teeth in discomfort. I want to go home. I haven't brought the steak home yet. When I woke up, I was greeted by the familiar cleanliness and brightness around me. My heart sank the moment I saw Wanda. Am I still alive? I thought I wouldn't make it. I immediately started checking my body. However, at that moment, Wanda's expression turned cold and distant. She stood up and said coolly, "No need to check. I saved you using scientific methods." I sensed the chill in her tone and suddenly understood what she meant. "No, that's not me." I knew she was the queen of the zombies, but I also knew she wouldn't create zombies. I didn't question her. But at that moment, I suddenly remembered why I had approached her in the first place. I didn't know how to explain it. Facing the spotless Wanda, I suddenly felt inferior. The next morning, I noticed a small vial of zombie plasma on my bedside table. She didn't say anything, but I knew she had brought it. I took the plasma to the base, said nothing, and turned around to leave the base for the last time. I never returned there again. Human research has made breakthroughs, and the zombie virus is gradually weakening. The toxins in the air and environment seem to be diluting, and the forest is slowly regaining its vitality. It turns out, in addition to humans, some animals have also survived. Life is resurrecting, but my heart is becoming increasingly uneasy. Finally, on the day the city was safe enough, Wanda suddenly said to me, "Byron, it's time for you to leave." I actually didn't want to leave. She is noble but lonely, and she doesn't understand human love. She doesn't understand that I like her. Suppressing the pain in my heart, I stood straight, gazing at her intently, and managed a faint smile as usual. "Miss, thank you for these 5 years of care.